Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to show off more of my movie physical media collection. This time around, it seems that the collection is just so low to the ground. If you had gone on to see my very last video, yeah, I was really just sitting on the ground pulling stuff out. This time around, considering I am to just kind of realize that this is to be so low to the ground, instead I'm just to have my movies just kind of on the sides of me here, on each side of me here, and I'm just kind of going to just pull from these things and then restack the movies in, of course, this shelf. And then at some point I will go on, and if I need to like reset it any moment, I'll just kind of pause the video and then I will recollect, because there is like two things of certain films that I'm gonna go on and kind of restack when all these empty out. So that's my plan, and hopefully, I am to be, of course, a guy that is to be as big and beefy as possible. So more than likely, I'm going to try to fit and frame as best I can throughout this, but also realize that, yeah, it may not completely be possible. So with that said, let's get started with this. So the first movie I'm to have here is actually Maximum Risk Double Impact, a double feature film. I like me some Jean-Claude, and when going on and trying to find Double Impact, that was the only avenue for trying to get that movie. So that's where I was just kind of left with just getting that. We have a movie called Mayhem. I had gone on to eventually see a movie called The Belko Experiment, and same similar movie. We have a bunch of people, they're kind of to be in like this kind of just certain business, and all of a sudden they are to be forced to kind of kill one another. It's almost kind of like the movie Severance that that it seems that people are to go on and find fairly popular. Uh, then we go on. We have the Jason Statham movie Mechanic. We come to find that Jason Statham is to go on and basically kill his mentor, his boss, and then eventually he comes to find the boss's son, and they kind of end up together. They partner up, and eventually they end up needing to just kill one another because, of course, the secret is out of the death of this dad. So that's what ends up happening here within that story. Very interesting film. The sequel is absolute garbage, but meh. Meet the Parents. There is some funny humor here, like we have when Robert De Niro asks Ben Stiller's character, "Hey, will you milk me?" It was stupid. But there is some funny gags in here, like when they're going on and they're, of course, doing the lie detector. There is to have them do the whole volleyball thing by the pool, and Robert De Niro calls Ben Panama Red, and there's some pretty good gags in this movie. So, if anything, I think just because of my sense of humor for Meet the Parents, I did get the sequel films, the Meet the Fockers. Like, this one isn't, of course, as good as the original, or even these sequels aren't anywhere as good as the original, but if anything, they're just kind of there. So, but I do have Little Fockers as well. Whatever. Like, I just had to complete the set at that point, even though those movies, again, aren't that good. Megamind. This is kind of an interesting film that you focus on the bad guy instead of the good guy. The bad guy, or the good guy, is to be played by Brad Pitt's character, and he seems to be a character that has kind of just beaten everybody. So, like, what is the point of what he needs to do anymore? His character was pretty interesting. I did enjoy Megamind all overall. How Will Ferrell would go on and like mispronounce things would just be like, yeah, I'm the same way. And, like, I would go on and just kind of mispronounce things on purpose just because it sounded funnier. Then we would go on to have Mega Man: The Button of Doom, which is to be this like weird, uh, kind of just somewhat sequel of a film that really was to just be a project that was like, well, hey, why not just put this out there as well? Then we have the Mel Brooks Collection. We have a number of different movies that are all here, that are all in this collection. Maybe I'll try to do it this way. We have a litany of films that are all to be in here. I'll kind of, as best I can, kind of show them off. Because, yeah, this is a little bit wonky, a little bit weird. And I'll explain what all the titles are, so if you missed anything, I'll explain those. And Blazing Saddles. So, in this collection, we have Blazing Saddles High Anxiety, History of the World Part 1, Robin Hood Men in Tights, Silent Movie, 12 Chairs, To Be or Not to Be, and Young Frankenstein. So yeah, there's a lot of movies in this one. There's a lot going on here. So yeah, yeah, so just wanted to show that off. I think this was somewhat expensive, but like it really, yeah, this needs to be in a lot of people's collections, because Mel Brooks is just freaking amazing anyways. Every one of his movies just has a great sense of humor, so that felt worth whatever price it was going to be. Men in Black. We go on to have some just kind of funny comedy at some points in this film. Just some weird alien stuff going on in the film with them needing to deliver an alien baby. Of course, Will Smith, like kind of newer to the job, has to go on and has to kind of perform this delivery of all things. And he's just kind of just being thrusted all over the car. And while Tommy Lee Jones's character needs to figure out why that this alien guy needs to go on and needs to kind of go on this road trip the way he does. But anyways, Men in Black 2. They come to find what was popular in the first one, and then they just kind of replace them in the sequel with the pug and the aliens, because that seemed to be a hit with people. We have Mighty Ducks and Mighty Ducks D2. D2 Mighty Ducks. I like the fact that those movies were done in Minnesota, because I'm a Minnesota guy. I also just really liked the characters. Like, the ones that they chosen were actually really smart for who they picked for those movies. And Mighty Ducks was really a fun film, a really good ensemble. And then eventually when they went on to do like Game Changers and stuff like that, I'm like, well, hopefully they can kind of recapture that. And they really didn't. They really didn't at all, but oh well. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, where we have Ivan Ooze and everything that we couldn't have reused on the show because of copyrights. The Zord looks unfinished. But if anything, the Megazord looks unfinished. But ultimately, besides all the walking that they have to do in the film, there's some just still a lot of fun lines. There's some good action in it. I enjoy bits and pieces of it still to this day. Turbo, a Power Rangers film, or a Power Rangers movie. I had gone on to do a review of that movie. I'm not quite sure exactly how I feel about it now. And it's also a Turbo film. Like, a movie that it strangely just everybody hates. Everybody just oddly hates the Turbo movie and hates the Power Rangers Turbo. I don't know. I'm so interested in eventually when I get through more of the the Power Rangers series review to eventually get to Turbo and just really sink in my feelings about whether or not Turbo sucks, or maybe just everybody else is just to kind of have their opinions and it's okay. Because at the end of the day, it's just like, well, like, oh well, people can feel however they want to about Turbo. Like, there's no wrong answer. But anyways, we have the later Power Rangers movie in Blu-ray and DVD. There's some visuals that are just ugh about this film, but I like what they did with the characters in this movie. There was a lot of potential. There was supposedly going to be like 6 films with this, because there was to have been the actor who had played the Blue Ranger. He had gone on to do this interview recently where he talked about how there were supposed to be 6 films and how the suits were to go on and be all kind of connected together. How it took them quite a bit of time. If they needed to take a bathroom break, they needed to take like an hour to get out of the suits. Like, it was ridiculous, but it makes quite a bit of sense. We have the Walt Disney's movie Miracle, the hockey the hockey USA movie, where we just had USA that was adamant about trying to beat Russia. So I do really like this movie, where like there's this scene where they're going on and they're doing they're forcing them to skate consistently, and then they consistently ask them like, okay, what team are you from? And the guys, they go on and they answer, it's like, well, I'm from this separate team, I'm from that separate team. Eventually, like, the further and further they force them to skate, they finally answer that they skate for the USA. And it's like, yeah, that's the answer you were supposed to answer, dummy. And yeah, I liked that film. It's really enjoyable. Let's try to separate these movies. Some of these are a little bit sticky. Cause some of them, it's like once you try to remove some of the tape from some of this stuff, like, it still is so sticky. We have Brad Pitt's Moneyball, based on a true story. I really thought that this movie was so smart. There's really one scene that I really absolutely loved from this film, and it's when Brad Pitt is talking to his kid, and the kid is like, well, yeah, like, there's so many people talking about you, and they're talking about you in a very negative way. And so he's like, well, hey, well, don't go into those magazines, don't watch those television things, don't read any of those books, don't read anything about any of it. Like, it's fine, like, I'm fine, like, just don't do any of that stuff that says anything bad about me. Just don't read any of it, don't read any of the reviews, who cares? And I thought that was so eloquently put. But then also, just Moneyball is just a smart film where we find that they're trying to figure out the island of misfit toys of really great baseball players that no one is to think is great just because of how their pitch is weird, or how they have just these little things about them that just kind of just doesn't cement them to want to go on and want to choose them on their team. But it's like, hey man, like, we're gonna get this gold mine of a player for absolutely nothing. The Money Pit, I have gone on to do a review about this movie, and if anything, the best scene of this whole movie is when the chimney breaks and Tom Hanks is going on like, he's like watching it like just sink all the way down, and he's just like, so yeah. And also when the tub breaks through the wall and he's just laughing, yeah, the Money Pit is freaking awesome. Love that film. Just a lot of good comedy out of that. Money Talks. We have 2 characters that are going on to just kind of bounce off one another. There is a whole thing about a car and some kind of thing that they need to get out of it. So eventually Chris Tucker goes on to get said items, and I think it's about diamonds. And so yeah, so Interesting film, but like it all ends in like this stadium, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting movie. Monsters versus Aliens. Uh, in all honesty, not much is to be retained from after watching a film like this. It was kind of cool though. I did like this idea about these these kind of monsters all kind of wrangle together to be a part of this agency, and then they end up getting the call. It's like, hey, yeah, this is the one time that you need to go on, you need to act. And like, I thought it was an interesting enough film. I think Reese Witherspoon's character, the giant girl character, is kind of the focus within the movie. She's kind of heavy focus, but I liked it. Monty Python's Holy Grail. I wish I honestly had a little bit more of Monty Python films, but I can see them on of course apps and stuff like that. So like, if anything, yeah, like I will eventually go on it, and I should check out more Monty Python films. But if anything, I haven't yet to review Holy Grail, and maybe I probably should, because it actually is a really good film. It really is. Now we have Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat, that has a really sweet soundtrack, as well as also just being a just kind of visually interesting enough film. Well, visually interesting enough is an understatement. Like, we have Goro that is to be done in a more interesting way than I think he's done later in Mortal Kombat films. I like the days of Man in a Suit. And they mostly try to do this throughout this film. There is some CGI stuff that obviously sticks out like a sore thumb, but I really like this first run of Mortal Kombat, and then, or the first movie of Mortal Kombat, the first run when we get to the sequel. Eventually kind of tries to jump the shark by the end by changing the characters into these giant monstrous things, which they keep trying to come back to, weirdly enough. I don't know why. Like, I guess a lot of people can look at this sequel and just have some fun with it and have a good laugh, and just find that there are some weird ideas within the sequel. But regardless, I can like both Mortal Kombat films. They are interesting in their own way. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's kind of interesting to see this couple going into therapy, and then also having them face off against one another, and then find that they need to work together to go up against their agency. Yeah, it really is an interesting film. Vince Vaughn is also kind of fun in this movie. So yeah, so surprisingly really liked this film when I was to have checked it out. We then have Mr. Brooks. This is a really interesting Kevin Costner film that deals with him being a serial killer, and he has a kind of voice that he talks to, a guy that kind of appears and like they have a conversation, which is rather interesting. And then also Dane Cook is to find out Kevin Costner is to be this killer by this one apartment that Kevin Costner kills people in. He sees him through a window, and then he finds him, and then he's like, well, hey, I want to kill somebody, so you and me need to go on and kind of do this. So eventually Costner ends up trying to figure out some way to get rid, or try to figure out how to outsmart Dane Cook by the further and further this movie goes. And so it is rather just intelligent, smart. I really enjoy it. So I would recommend, if people have never heard of it, to look into it, check it out, by all means. So we go on next to Mr. Mom. Classic family film. We have the one kid with the whoopee. We have the mother who's needing to work at this tuna company or do a pitch for this tuna company, something like that. And we have Keaton's character that is going on and having this dream that is to be within a soap like setting, which is kind of fun. And eventually he ends up getting shot in the dream. Really very interesting movie. I really did enjoy it. We go from one Keaton movie to another. Multiplicity. We find out that a common man is to find out how to clone himself. So he goes on and does so, but he does it a little bit too much, I feel. It gets to the point where eventually, like, no matter how many clones he has, it just doesn't feel enough. That he's not getting everything that he's doing. It doesn't feel like he's getting everything done. And then eventually his wife leaves him because of just frustration of him not being able to really do everything that he set out to. Like, he was going to fix the house. He was going to do a number of things that he just promised and never delivered. So, kind of becomes a really interesting movie, and kind of becomes like a heartwarming film also. So, next up, we have Tom Cruise's The Mummy. Kind of an interesting take compared to the Brendan Fraser. I have no idea how exactly to pronounce that. Variation of The Mummy. Like, there was nothing that I saw here that felt identical to the other one. Maybe there is some. It's been a long time since seeing this. Let me know in the comments below if you do like The Mummy, because maybe I'll check it out at some point in the future. Because I did enjoy that film. We have Murder by Numbers. This is to be a Ryan Gosling, Sandra Bullock film. It is kind of interesting how, like, Sandra Bullock in this movie plays a very much more darker character, and it's interesting that Ryan Gosling is playing the bad guy in this movie, because most of the time he plays the good guy. It's really interesting how further and further this story twists, and I enjoy this movie. I enjoy this film. When Sandra Bullock goes on and eventually does try to figure out what had happened with those boys, and it's by the end of the film, and her partner turns to her and says, yeah, you know what? I absolutely trust you. I absolutely trust you. You're a way better detective than any of these other people. So, yeah. We get My Bloody Valentine 3D. This, of course, is to be the remake, not the original. Of course, we have to realize this is a 3D movie, so everything just has to jump at you. I actually did watch it in 3D with glasses on, and in all honesty, it kind of made me sick a little bit, so I had to kind of watch it in 2D. That was kind of weird. Because I would go on in the theater and watch it in 3D, and I'm completely fine. But weirdly, this version just made me sick. It was weird. So I don't know what happened with that. But nice job, movie, for making me ill. But it wasn't because of how bad the movie was. Like, it was a decent film. Jensen Ackles was in it. It was like I was kind of curious of the original movie to see how different it was, or to see if I could really find a way to figure out what best version of this is, or enjoy it more. I don't know. But anything. Pushing on into Mystery Man. Very fun movie. We have cameos from a number of different really good stand-up comedians in this film, besides also like Ben Stillers and any number of characters here that are to be seen on this kind of front here, this cover. This is to go on and basically, like, well, hey, if superheroes were kind of real in a way, we have characters that have these just kind of goofy abilities. And, like, I think this feels a little bit more realistic than some of the other stuff. So, like, it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. We make our way into My Super Ex-Girlfriend. This is just kind of a funny concept film, and really there might be some good comedy here and there. Uh, really, eventually we go on to have like the main character, Luke Wilson. He goes on to eventually end up with some other girl instead of Uma Thurman, and then Uma Thurman ends up with uh, a guy that she has been with in the past, and it ends up being that that guy is to be her arch nemesis, and then eventually they realize that they are perfect for one another. Very very fun film. There's at one point where like Luke Wilson's character gets like this like kind of just word burnt into his forehead, so he wears like a beanie. So that's pretty fun. We get a movie called The Nightmare Before Christmas. Classic film, and love the music in this movie. Just so good. The stop motion, just the visual of this movie is so unique. And for those of you that want something that is a lot more dark for your Christmas season, this is it. Like this is clearly it. Um, just something more like mixing in the Halloween and Christmas together is just fantastic. So we make our way into now next Avengers. This is to, of course, have us realize that all the Avengers have to have descendants. And this movie, I was like, okay, it's all right. Really, for this film, we have like the Hulk, and we have certain other characters that are still just to kind of be older version of themselves to kind of still be in the movie. There's not much else I can remember from this piece, so yeah, it's been a long time since seeing Next Avengers of all things. Once after collecting the physical media of it. We have now the never ending story, the song that never ends. Because I always go on, and at some points when I just feel like a movie is dragged on, I end up like never ending story. Da 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 da. Yeah. Yeah, because like that's the joke I make. Because yeah. Falkor, Atreyu, just interesting characters within this film. And then, like, they have all these just kind of weird further characters that they put in this film for some goofy reason. Eventually, it all plays out that whoever is to have read this story is to eventually be part of it, and eventually, when they make sequels, yeah, it's a quite interesting film. Iconic, just amazing movie. We have Never Back Down. We come to find that this main character here is to be this football star, and he always gets upset when anybody ends up bringing up his dad. So he basically hauls off and beats the shit out of him. So come to find out, when this guy needs to go on and get to another school, he meets up with this said next guy next to him, and he finds out that this guy is a little bit more combatively skilled than he is. And so then main character boy needs to go on and train about how to be better and fight this guy again, where he goes on and meets Djaimon's character. And Djaiman goes on and is to kind of not want him to fight, wants him to learn how to not become as angry when he leaves, and so on and so forth. So, Nerve. Nerve is to be this interesting movie that has these two characters that go on to want to be part of this app-like game where it's kind of like this shock value thing. What could they get away with? They run around this store butt naked, and they further and further do these just kind of interesting things. come to find out there's so many other people playing this game that you'll find out more as this movie goes along, like who's all part of it. And like it's just is a really interesting piece, I feel. It's unique. And also you find that the guy who is the Franco's character is to have kind of played this game before, and the game gets really extreme to the point of people getting killed, people dying. And so, next up, we have The New Guy. This is really a fun film. We get the whole crazy eyes thing. And so, we come to find that this guy is to be a geek, a nerd, or what have you. And so, he wants to try to figure out a way to get kicked out of his school to go to another school so he can become a badass there. But eventually they come to find his secret of that him being just this nerdy guy at this other school. Because it's to go on and be fairly similar to Can't Buy Me Love or God, what is it? Can't Buy Me Love or Love Don't Cost a Thing or whatever those kind of movies are where it's like they end up having to reveal at the end who these people really are. And it's like, oh no, like my secret is out. Oh no. So let's go on and let's talk about Nightcrawler. This Jake Gyllenhaal movie is so interesting to me. Like, we have this guy who basically is to be like this thief, and he wants to go on and take this camera and film all these crashes and all these like horrible scenes and just follow all these police radios to try and get to these spots. And then eventually he goes on to get a really fast car and gets to the spots before even the police do. He adjusts the crime scene so that way he can have better images, better views, and have better lighting. And so Jake Gyllenhaal's character goes on and gets to like this murder scene before anyone else does. And yeah, like this movie becomes really fascinating the way it all plays out. Because eventually by the end, Jake's character is to spot the killers. And so he goes on to try to figure out a way to eyeball the suspects and have them be in this like chaotic scene where these police are there so that way he can film it, and he's the first one there, of course, coincidentally. So with that said, I'm going to pause this here so I can go on and have the very bottom stack like over here so I can kind of grab from that. But I'm going to also grab from this spot over here. But if anything, I'm just kind of planning things out a little bit better instead of going all the way and sitting on the ground and just kind of hurting my body and back and whatever. So let me pause here to just do that. All right, and we're back. Mission Impossible. Really fun film. Kind of like a whodunit in a lot of ways. Where eventually all the sequels end up just becoming like, what action cool thing can we do next? How dangerous could we have Tom Cruise be in this film where he has to go on and do all these stunts and wacky things that kind of really put him in very much danger, but F it, like, this guy wants to keep doing this, so we're gonna just keep paying him a shitload just to do these movies. Now we have The Mist, the Stephen King Mist movie. Eventually this also became a show, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Just milk out the entire movie as a show. That makes a lot of sense. I really liked this film because, if anything, right around the time I was to have gone on and been involved in a retail store, so like finding out that the world could have ended in a retail store just made a lot of sense to me. I was like, yeah, like I could see how the world could end at any day now. I don't know, that seems very bleak, but if anyways, I was just like, but man, I could just imagine how people could be just kind of feeling in modern day with everything going on the way it's going on. But if anything, like, I'm sorry if I'm not as optimistic here, but yeah, but if anything, it's just like I hope everybody's day is great. I hope that everybody uh is good in their life, and I hope we have better days coming. I hope we do. But anyways, we have A Million Ways to Die in the West. This is just a severely goofy movie that Seth, the guy who did this movie, like, yeah, just a really goofy film. Uh, there is some aspects of this movie that I did kind of find funny, but I also just thought there's a majority of it to just kind of just be stupid. Um, but I think I just kind of impulse bought it because it was just I wanted to check it out, so that's just me wanting to just blow some money, I guess, because I guess it was probably cheap somewhere. This one is to be Night of the Living Dead. I'll show the back here to kind of show you which variation of it is. Yeah. Really go on, and I really enjoy a lot of these kind of zombie movies. So yeah, so I probably was to be very confused what exact copy of whichever movies that I was getting. So I really had to kind of do my research to figure out if I was getting the right ones. Ninja Assassin. This is a really interesting movie altogether. This is the movie where they go on and they have the whole, like, your heart is different. And I'm sorry if that is to offend anybody by how I pronounce that. It's just the way it just pops into my brain. This ends up going on to be where there's this whole faction that adopts all these orphans and have them become ninjas and assassins. And at one point, we have one of the ninjas that betrays its faction and goes off on his own, and then tries to go after that faction, his old faction. And like, so many twists and turns go on in this film that I thoroughly enjoy. So I think I had gone on to review said film, so by all means, check that out so you can kind of get my recent consensus of, or not recent consensus, but you'll get my feelings of the movie from a more recent watching point of view. No Holds Barred. This is just man meat slapping man meat. That's all this movie needs to be. That's all it was to have been. This movie, of course, was to have been supposedly written by both Hulk and Vince McMahon, and I kind of doubt that. But, really, like, this movie is also not that hard to have written either. So, but it was, when watching, it was kind of a fun movie. But again, I've reviewed it on the channel, so you can check that out. Liam Neeson's Non-Stop. This is when they just started to put Liam Neeson just in all these kind of scenarios. Like, we would go on to the Gray and have him to be put with all these people on this plane. We have another plane movie that he was in, and I think this one ends up taking place on a train. No, wait. No, maybe this one is taking place on a plane. I have no idea. It's either a plane or a train this one goes on to. But I know that there was, like, both that I think they end up putting him in for whatever goofy reason. Next up, we end up getting a movie called North Country. This is to be a Charlize Theron, Jeremy Renner movie. This is to be a film that I think I go on to reference from time to time on certain things. Man, I probably should have gotten on to reference this and probably send help because it's somewhat similar. We have these women that are working in this job that they end up getting very harassed about, and eventually we have Charlize Theron's character that goes to like Woody Harrelson's character, and ends up going on to like put uh, a case together, and eventually they get a case together. Like they try to do like a RICO case or something like that, where like they try to get a number of people within that same scenario to all admit that they were all to be harassed, and so eventually Charlize Theron's character ends up getting quite a bit of money out of a settlement because eventually a lot of people started to come forward. Not another teen movie, just goofy slop of a film that I really did enjoy. Just a lot of this movie is just so funny. Of course, we have Chris Evans in this film. It is to remind us of so many films that we had grown up on, like Breakfast Clubs, and we also have a girl that I think is just naked throughout this entire film from memory. Because like all these parody movies are kind of the same. Really just an interesting film that I did enjoy. Even though it was just kind of like it brought up just it kind of rinsed and repeated and recycled so many kind of these movies, and it wasn't kind of being its own thing, but oh well. Notting Hill. But also that's kind of the point, because it's parodying everything. Notting Hill. The interview segment that Hugh Grant does with Julia Roberts by the end of the film is kind of interestingly to be having it be remembered. Obviously Julia Roberts is like this popular actress or this popular person, and Hugh Grant is just this guy that owns a bookstore, and he goes on to be with this girl and then realizes, oh, she's famous. Like he doesn't know who she is. So eventually, the further and further that the two of these people meet, yeah, like it just like, is this ever really gonna happen? Like who knows? We'll figure out by the end of the film. Nowhere to Run. This is another Jean-Claude movie where Jean-Claude has to go on and I think escape from prison or something along those lines. It's one of those kind of traditional Jean-Claude films that we've kind of seen countless times. Jean-Claude leaves with another person out of, I think, prison to have this person get killed along the way. Jean-Claude goes on to make his way to his brother's home to find that his brother's wife is having trouble with some guys wanting to force this woman to sell her house. Jean-Claude has to try to stop these guys from coming in, and so he does. Both Jean-Claude and this woman end up becoming lovers, sharing a bed together. It's all that kind of stuff going on in that film. Very, very basic action movie, but if anything, Now You See Me. Yeah, magic film. Yeah, nothing to be really remembered of this film whatsoever besides it's magical. We come to find that these characters have these like just psychic abilities that they can go on and kind of use at any time to just kind of trick people into doing stuff. It's another one of those movies. What can I say very creatively? The number 23. This is to be a film where Jim Carrey is to notice as a detective in a separate story that this woman has like 23 shoes in her closet and everything's 23. And then all of a sudden, the further and further we go into the film, so we realize Jim Carrey also is this detective in the story, but then he's also the person reading said story. And it's kind of a very meta thing going on. And so Jim Carrey, while reading this story that he's inside of, he goes on to himself start to realize, yeah, like 2, 3, 23. Like, all these things match. And it becomes kind of one of those movies that kind of really does mess with your mind, does mess with your brain. But also, it's just kind of really interesting how it all plays out. So, for those of you that just want a one-off watch movie because it'll mess with your brain, then yeah, just watch that film. We have the Nutty Professor 1 and 2. We of course get the Hercules Cletus, and this is just a fascinating and interesting movie that we have Eddie Murphy's character that goes on and plays so many characters in this film. He also goes on to become Buddy Love, that is to be like the skinnier version of himself because he, of course, wants to lose weight. So the only way he can figure out to do that is by going on and figuring out a way scientifically to just do that. So he goes on, of course, comes up with the solution, and then eventually he comes up with this alter ego, and eventually he realizes what a mistake that is. And like in the second one, we have Klump that tries to separate himself from Buddy, and then when he does, he realizes that he needs Buddy, and he won't be able to operate without him. So, yeah. We now have Office Space. We always get the classic joke about the TPS reports. Stapler. There's like the whole thing about the Saturday. Hey, will you come in Saturday? Yeah, it's not gonna work. No, yeah. So, there's a lot of goofy lines in here. We have a character that plays Michael Bolton because his name is Michael Bolton, and they say it's like, hey, like, why have your name be Michael Bolton? Why not change it to Mike or something else? And the person's like, well, hey, it's not my fault that Michael Bolton sucks. I love that joke. Very funny film. We have Ocean's 11. This is to be the one that sticks out to me because we have Julia Roberts when she comes into the film, and I think Brad Pitt and Matt Damon are kind of talking about her. Every time you need to look at Brad Pitt and notice that he has a different bowl of shrimp every single time, and it's the worst mess up I've ever seen in a movie ever, and it actually is quite funny. We have Ocean's 12. They keep making those, so I kept buying them for some reason. I think the first one was good. The sequels are they were just a thing to watch after the first one. So, then we have Ocean's 13. All right. Now we have Old School. Of course, like this is like for those of you that are going to like movies like Animal House and just enjoy kind of like the fraternity kind of films, because there are those kind of people out there. I would go on to find very unique fraternity like movies and just have a good time, because I can just realize that I can kind of just take my brain and kind of just click it off and be like, let's have a goofy, weird time. Olympus Has Fallen. Of course, I actually have a physical copy of this movie, and really actually do like this very first film. Everything that kind of comes after that is honestly just me needing to have gone on and covered it on YouTube, because it seemed that people were to have gone on and liked those movies. So I covered all of them. I really probably don't like exactly how I was to have gone on and covered most of those, but regardless, it's covered on the channel. So weirdly enough, like they're really highly popular on the channel for some goofy reason, and I don't know why. But if anything, like the first one, that was good. Anything after that, it is what it is. Once Bitten and Vampire Kiss. I really liked Vampire Kiss. It's very goofy and very weird. We have Nicolas Cage's character that has the assistant Alba, and so at one point he goes on and he literally says the whole entire alphabet, A, B, C, D. I've never misspelled anything. So it's quite a funny film. Uh, Once Bitten, like it has its moments. Like I think it is kind of for a vampire movie. It's quite funny, but I don't know. I'd have to check it out more recently to see if there is some good comedy there, or because I had seen it once and I think I have reviewed it, but like I'm not quite sure. If I haven't, maybe it'll be a thing that I should review if people are interested in it enough. We have Jet Li's The One, a movie that has a specific Jet Li that goes on and goes into other dimensions to find alternate versions of himself to kill his alternate version. So that way he can go on and become more powerful. Eventually, Jason Statham is to try to track him, chase him down, to stop him from killing all of his duplicates or alternate versions of himself. So, and becomes a really fascinating film. The Other Guys. This is to be a cop movie that really makes me realize how actually good Michael Keaton is, and it was nice to kind of bring him back into a film like this, because he does really have good comedy. We go on to this film and we have kind of iconic lines like "I'm a peacock, you gotta let me fly," and for Samuel Jackson and Dwayne Johnson, like their performances are kind of really fun also in this movie for how brief they honestly are. Um, all right. Everything is full. So I'm gonna start the very bottom row here. So if you really see me do a little bending over, you'll know why. We now have the Michael Keaton film Pacific Heights. So this is honestly just a really interesting film. We come to find that Michael Keaton just makes his way into a place for him to rent, and he really just steals everything in the apartment. He like tears everything down and but so the couple goes on and they're like, man, like he is like the worst tenant ever, and then they try to evict him and he has 30 days, and by those 30 days, yeah, he goes on and he rips out everything of the entire place. And I don't think he ever really pays for rent or anything, and so that's kind of like the heartbreak of this movie is, yeah, he like never pays for it, but like he's an occupant, so it's kind of interesting, like the characters that just kind of use the system, I guess, and that just intelligent of a way. So we now go on to make our way into a film, Pacific Height or Pacific Heights, Pacific Rim, Pacific Rim. I just had Keaton movies on the mind. Pacific Rim. This is an interesting, like, if you like Godzilla, if you like Power Rangers, you'll like this film. I always find this movie so fascinating, and like how they have the people that are like connected to the brain together. Like reminds me of like Power Rangers now. Like when they have the Megazord, how a lot of people have to assume that these people are the Power Rangers are like connected together by the brain, and so yeah, so Pacific Rim is actually a really interesting piece. Idris Elba just made me really like him as an actor after this movie was done, and then eventually he did so many other projects past that. So Pacific Rim Uprising, very interesting sequel that like was basically just like, okay, let's try to do something different with this project. They made a good guy a bad guy. Twists and turns happen in the film. Like basically the robots end up becoming the bad guys in the sequel. Yeah, like it is what it is with that film. We have Paparazzi. This movie is to honestly be kind of really interesting. Of course, if you've gone on to see like Nightcrawler before, this movie goes on and has an actor who's to kind of be very popular right now in the scene, and so this paparazzi continues to follow him so much so that they even kind of technically cause an accident, and then they go on after the accident happens, takes even further pictures so that way they can have unique things go on. So they cause an accident, so in return, the actor starts going after these paparazzi because he realizes that they won't stop. So he goes on to go after them and starts to kill them and take them all out. And it's just kind of a really interesting film. Percy Jackson and Olympians and The Lightning Thief. You know what? It is quite interesting. Man, they really took this and they ran with it. Eventually, they made a show with this thing, and yeah, it is quite fascinating to have seen all that play out with WWE's Edge involved in that project, and yeah, so I really did like this first one. I thought it was kind of cool, but eventually they really went hard on that whole like that the idea of the movie they use so much everywhere. Like when Clash of the Titans, the remake, was going well, then all of a sudden it just started to steamroll that they just had to have these kind of ideas with these descendants or demigods or whatever characters, and eventually it just started to get a little tired of an idea. But they kept doing it regardless of how old the concept started to become. The more they used it. Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters, the sequel. At least I decided to check out the sequel. And I was like, whatever. Like, okay, like, this one is kind of lost its luster. The Pest. John Leguizamo, hilarious movie. Really enjoy this piece. My favorite gag of this movie is where John Leguizamo goes on and tells the hunter guy, it's like, oh, you got me, Gustav, you got me laughing at you. That's what I use everywhere as a joke. We have the original Phantom, the Billy Zane one. This was to basically feel like Black Panther before Black Panther was a thing. And also like Tarzan's and stuff like that, so they were kind of taking all those ideas and then just putting it into this character and then having it be a DC comic book character also. This is a fun adventure movie. And then also they end up having all those skulls and they slam them together and then there has to be a ring against 3 skulls, and I'm like, whatever. It is what it is. They had to figure out a way to finish up that film. They had to come up with some goofy ideas to wrap that bad boy up. Anyways. Now we go on to a remake of The Phantom, this other variation of this. It was honestly interesting that they did modernize this character, and I watched this and I really honestly did enjoy it. So, yeah, I would say if people can find a copy of this, to check it out. It is to probably feel also like a long-winded movie because they really have to go into the whole origins of the character, and like they have to tell you like what he's eating from his trash and all this stuff. Get into the real nitty-gritty details, but anyways. Phenomenon! This is to be a movie where aliens go on and beam down a light that gives John Travolta these psychic powers, and he goes on to be in this small town, and once they figure out that he has all these abilities, they end up using him. He ends up going on to find this just kid in this field somewhere, and eventually they start to fear him. Like it all comes down to him like just twiddling around these glasses, and he explains how it's a partnership, and so yeah, so but feasibly, like John Travolta tries to go on and he buys all these chairs for this woman so that we can say how much he likes her. And so Phone Booth. Phone Booth, this is an interesting movie where we have Colin Farrell's character that makes his way into a phone booth because he has to call all of his different lovers. And so Colin ends up getting stuck in this phone booth because he ends up answering this call. And this call ends up being from somebody from some window with a gun. And Colin is to assume that it's a joke, but then shots go off, people get killed, and then Colin is stuck on this booth, forced to be confessing all of his sins, forced to be confessing that he had an affair, forcing his confession of everything, because he probably realizes he's going to die here. He's going to die in this booth. So Forrest Whitaker is to be the negotiating character, the cop that is trying to figure out what's going on with Colin. And eventually, Colin figures out this masterstroke of revealing that he is going on and having this guy call him and kind of control things. And so, yeah, it gets to be a really interesting piece by the end of this movie of how things all play out. Next up, we have Pitch Black. An interesting Vin Diesel film where you have a bunch of people kind of crash land on this planet, and then they come to find out that this planet is to be filled with all of these monstrous things that want to go on and eat them. So they end up realizing that they need to figure out a way to escape this place. They need all these batteries for the ship, and they end up running to this certain area at night to try and go on and try to save themselves. We have the Chronicles of Riddick: Dark Fury. So this is to have supposedly taken place between both Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick. So I checked this out because, of course, I wanted to kind of complete the story here and find out what happened between both of those films, because that was the kind of the mid movie. We have the Chronicles of Riddick. This was such an interesting film. We have Riddick that goes on, and he ends up in this prison. He goes on and plays who's the best killer in this movie. Riddick is to be this guy who is to just kind of outsmart everybody and go on to eventually be just such an interesting character that ends up getting lumped into these kind of space adventures, and it's kind of really fun. Riddick, this actually had a really good cast. Vin Diesel himself kind of put together the money for this movie because eventually he bought the rights for this character, and so he's like, well, hey, now I can go on and do whatever I want with this character. And so he went on and made this movie, and then it ended up being like the last movie that he made with Riddick. Maybe at some point he'll go on and do another one, but yeah, like the way that this whole thing played out was really like still interesting to continue this series. Like, this wasn't a bad piece. I really did like it. So it's good that if Riddick is to go on and just be the last film of that, then I'm like, okay, well, like at least they did finish on a positive. It could have been really bad. Planet Hulk. This is to be like a kind of a prequel to the Marvel comic book World War Hulk. So Hulk ends up getting kind of shucked off into space because the Avengers do not trust him anymore. So Hulk ends up getting shucked off into space to go to this planet and to eventually kind of fight for his freedom and then go on and get some allies. And eventually, like, the further and further the story plays out, the more like the planet is in chaos. And yeah, like, it is for what it is, just like an interesting piece. And like, once I found out that it was kind of like a prequel to World War Hulk, I was like, okay, I need to see this. The original Poltergeist, They're Here, the classic film, the family finding out that they have their home underneath an alien Indian burial ground, and how throughout this movie they're dealing with Carol Ann, who's on the other side, and so they have to figure out how to get her out of there as she's on the TV talking to them. We have Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping. I had gone on to check this movie out because the WWE star of Alexa Bliss had said that she absolutely loves this movie. So I checked it out. I'm like, okay, this is kind of funny, goofy, whatever. It's just a kind of whatever film. Like, not one thing that I would be like, yeah, it's the best movie ever. No, it's just the thing to watch. Like, there is just some goofy ideas that I liked in that film, but I was like, whatever. So Point Break, classic film that is to have a detective need to try to figure out how these dead presidents are going through all of these states and doing all these bank robberies. We come to find out that they're surfers. At some point, we'll have the dead presidents going on and figuring out who Keanu Reeves is and that he's undercover, and so they end up kind of just kidnapping his girlfriend, and the third act plays out. The next movie is to be The Postman, where we have one guy who ends up calling Kevin Costner's character Shakespeare. There is some back and forthing of Shakespeare, to be or to not to be. At some point, Kevin Costner kind of ditches one faction to eventually make another. Kevin Costner's character goes on to find a abandoned mailbox with a skeleton inside. He goes on to put on the mailbox attire in hopes that if he can pretend to be a mailman, that he can go on and just kind of get a free meal and everything like that. So as he goes on and tries to do this, then all of a sudden everybody starts to join his mail service, and everybody just kind of assumes that they can all just mail now. And so the further and further this thing goes along, the more Kevin Costner realizes, like, oh, like, this is kind of getting a life of its own. And by the end of the film, we come to find that there is to be, like, the Postmans against the other faction that Kevin Costner joined with in the beginning of this. And yeah, like, it's kind of a very interesting film, but anything. Arnold's Predator. So many interesting one-liners in this. Dylan, you son of a bitch. And the whole arm slapping thing. The stick around. Yeah. Yeah, like, the interesting play out of this film, like, I can immediately understand why there were so many sequels. Luckily, they end up picking an interesting enough alien creature to really have that stand the test of time. And we have Predators from 2010. This movie is so action-packed, I really do enjoy it. This movie is to have so many kind of different characters that are all kind of playing their, like, there are certain, like, quota-filling thing to be. And this one is obviously one of the more standout Predator movies after the original, and probably the Glover one, the sequel, the number 2. Because eventually, like, I think a lot of people also like the sequel to Predator. Let's go on and let's grab these. So, we then go on and we have The Prestige. I had gone on and at one point reviewed a movie called The Deception, and that also had Hugh Jackman in it. And this weirdly kind of reminds me of it because we have, like, these two people within this film. But if anything, Deception is drastically different than this movie, Prestige, because this is a magician movie. Deception is to be a movie where Ewan McGregor's character is with Hugh Jackman, and then he finds out that, like, they switch phones, and then Hugh Jackman is a part of this, like, call girl thing where all these girls call in and like, hey, are you free tonight? And then eventually they have sex together. But the Prestige is to be about magicians, and the whole thing of it is the two of them end up kind of going against one another because they had simply not tied a rope a certain way, and so eventually leads friction between the two of them. They try to do the better trick, and eventually they try to almost copy one another with their tricks, and so why not? Priest. This is an interesting vampire film. Carl Urban eventually goes on to play the bad guy in this movie. So this is also just like a really interesting way of like a distant future where they do kind of interesting things with technology that has like these like confessionals in this like porta potty, and just the way that all this is kind of visually put together is just so interesting, even though also it's probably to be done at a very certain budget. But anyways, it probably may have been disguised somewhere. The Princess Bride. Classic film. We have a guy that dresses up as almost kind of like Zorro and faces off against some foes to try to win his woman back, because really he has had such a history with her. As You Wish is to be the thing that she knows who exactly he is. And the further and further we go along in this movie, the more iconic thing that I remember, of course, except for Inconceivable, is True Glaive. It's like, what the heck is True Glaive? And then eventually they find out it's true love. Next up, we have Prince of Persia. I had gone on to actually dress up as this for Halloween. That's how good I thought this movie was. And of course, nobody knew who I was, because no one really knows who anybody is in Halloween. I could dress up as the most well-known superhero, and people are just like, He-Man? Like, who are you? I'm like, really? You don't know who Captain America is? You don't know who Thor is? You don't know who these people are? Like, come on. Like, I would thought it would just kind of be like everyone should know who these people are, but evidently not. Or whoever I worked with just wasn't in the know. Yeah, I dressed up as Prince of Persia. This is an interesting film. The acrobatics and everything that kind of is to kind of be copied and pasted in the more live action Aladdin movie, because that's basically what they kind of ripped off of, because this is also another Disney title. Prince of Persia goes on and has all these brothers, and he goes on to accidentally kill his own father. Well, the Prince of Persia is to not exactly like biologically to have been tied to this family, but once they find out that he had something to do with the death, even though like it was by accident, they kind of split him to have him just kind of run for his life. Eventually, he goes on to take the Sands of Time with him, as well as also the new bride of his brother. And the further and further we go along in this piece, like, it is rather interesting to kind of see all of it play out, where Jake Gyllenhaal's character has to kind of convince his brother that he didn't kill him, and that actually the guy from Iron Man 3, the guy who was the Mandarin, the guy who is the bald guy in the movie, he is to be the real villain in the story, because of course he is. We have The Punisher, the director's cut. I think most of this that is to be extended from this movie is to be like mostly just the beginning, where it's to be this like black and white extra kind of thing, where it's to kind of give more of a backstory of this character, but anything else, it's really to just kind of be like hit or miss, or whether or not it's to really be a really extended cut or director's cut. This is extended cut, I guess. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like, cause there is some scenes that are little like, there's a little bit more story here and there, but like it doesn't really affect the film. So I can understand why they cut out some of the stuff they cut out in this movie, because it doesn't really affect it, and it good enough. We have Punisher Warzone. Punisher Warzone went in a much more darker direction. You get villains like Jigsaw, Looney Bin Jin. You have a Punisher that goes on and murders a whole entire family in this table scene. I was like, oh my god, he's like going on chandeliers, swinging from chandeliers, and just murdering all these people. And it's great. It's a really interesting action film. I've probably reviewed it on the channel, so you can check out my thoughts of it, so you can get my more like I saw the movie, so let me talk about it kind of thing. So, The Purge. I have a copy of this. The Purge had gone on to do so many things that it eventually ended up doing a TV show. I think I'd gone on to probably review this movie, so you can get my thoughts of it. Really just a tale of this family going on and bringing in this person that they should not have, and eventually the neighborhood upset that they were to go on and bring this guy in. So they try to get into their house to try to kill these people because they can, because it's Purge Night. It's Purge Night, one night of the year where they can do whatever the fudge they want, because they can get away with it. It's like Christmas, not really. Then we have The Purge Anarchy. Within all these sequels, they just weirdly have these just kind of weird, like, patriotic things. I don't know why. Eventually the sequels do get quite interesting, but eventually once you get to like the first Purge and stuff like that, it just kind of goes downhill. It gets really crappy. They end up bringing in Frank Grillo's character, and that was a smart decision. And I think everybody after that just wanted like, hey, we want more Frank Grillo. Because of course you do. Like, when a big actor like that is involved in a movie like this, yeah, like you want him more involved in the film. So we get The Purge election year. Again, we have more of like characters in this film that are to look even more patriotic than the other film in much more costume form. Eventually how oh yeah, I guess Frank Grillo back in this one, or otherwise he's only in this one. I have no idea. But yeah. But so pushing on. Push. I wasn't expecting to make that joke, but it just happened. We go on to find that there is a future where a bunch of people are to start to have all of these psychic powers a lot more. And so we have Dakota Fanning's character that comes in, and she's to be this psychic that can see the future. And so she sees that her and Chris Evans' character are eventually to die, and so she's trying to course correct it. And the further and further we go along in this movie, we find that the girl that's right here, that's on, she has this drug on her that eventually they need to figure out how to help her. And so it becomes like a really interesting film. I really liked it. The Quick and the Dead. We find out that most of this movie is to just be a dueling film. Everybody is to try to figure out basically the best duelist to try and kill Gene Hackman's character. Because like the highest paid hitman are trying to kill Gene Hackman's character, but he's too good at drawing. So it all comes down to this character. I think it's Sharon Stone's character who has this like vendetta against Gene Hackman, and because he had killed her father, so she's going after him. She's gonna try and kill him, and makes for a really interesting film. We have Ready Player One. This is my favorite movie of all time so far. I'm hoping that there's probably going to be something that is better than this or going to beat it, but I don't know, like a lot of new releases are very hit and miss. I don't care that this movie is not like the book. I could give a rip. I love that this movie is just this Easter egg thing It's so fascinating to see a project like this to have ever been done. I really enjoy this piece, and I really find it to just be something that it's like, man, I wish I can go on and just have just some time to myself so I can just rewatch that again, but I just don't. Um, Ready to Rumble. This is kind of exactly a good condition of this thing, but if anything, it was kind of hard to find a good condition of this movie. Crown him. It's interesting that this movie went on to have David Arquette get involved in WCW and eventually become world champion. And then everybody going on and saying how like David Arquette was like the worst WCW champion ever. And so David Arquette later on decided like, well, hey, I'm going to go back into wrestling and I'm going to prove to people that I am actually to go on and try to be a good wrestler. And did a whole documentary about it. So like people did give him credit for actually like, hey, man, you did try and it's good for you. So like it's nice that hopefully he changed some opinions upon him. So that's kind of nice. Real Steel. This is basically just Rock'em Sock'em Robots, the movie. We have this father that kind of is forced to kind of regain his son. And when he does go on to regain his son, eventually he realizes that he's like, no, like I really like this relationship means a lot to me. I'm not gonna let this go. So, and they also connect with the whole like robot thing. They really find that Adam, their robot, is to just kind of be unique and interesting. So, just becomes a bit of fun film, even though it's just basically Rock'em Sock'em Robots. The movie Red. We have Bruce Willis's character that goes on to continue to call this woman at this kind of customer service thing, and he does it all the time, and eventually they end up talking to one another so much or so often that at some point they just kind of end up together. It's kind of interesting. Bruce Willis also goes on and finds all these other kind of people and kind of teams up together, and I think during that movie kind of brought back like John Malkovich, because he was kind of doing all these really weird and off films. Like I think it kind of brought him back into doing much more mainstream things, and bringing him back into like, okay, like we can put this guy in this film and he'll do like we'll do really good business. Red 2, of course, the sequel to Red. Feasibly with the sequel, I was like okay, like they're just kind of bringing in whoever other actors that they can just bring into this film. I think Carl Urban is actually in the sequel of this one. Yeah. Like pretty much after the first one, I was like, yeah, whatever. What are they gonna do with this? Red Dawn. This movie is like I can also like the original, but like this remake was pretty unique and pretty interesting. Kree comes on and invades America. Chris Hemsworth goes on and states that it's like, well, hey, yeah, like to them this is a place, but to us this is our home. We're gonna defend it, like, and so Chris ends up going on to do this whole line that has to sell everybody in on what he's doing, and they buy it hook, line, and sinker to the point to where by the end of the film, Chris Hemsworth's brother's character goes on and recites the same thing word for word, because like he has to kind of carry that torch. So it's a really interesting action film. It's just a really modern take on a movie that did work from the original. So why not remake it? Makes a lot of sense. Just modernize it. The Ref. We have this guy that goes on. He basically just kidnaps this family in their home, and then come to find out, like the longer and longer that they're in this home for, that eventually he has to kind of like figure out a way to kind of still hold a gun on them, and to have them kind of go throughout their normal day-to-day stuff. And it's a pretty fun piece, like, to Kevin Spacey's character and his wife in this movie are just bickering back and forth, and it's just really interesting to see that movie play out with the comedy and just the point with Dennis Leary kind of really being the ref of these two characters. That's why it's called the ref. We have Rendell. This is a movie that honestly, I saw it because of the this thing, the cover. And then when I saw it, I was like, low budget, just a thing that I'm like, okay, whatever this is, something that I'm going to forget about as soon as after I watch it. But I still have it, so I really forgot about it. We have the Reservoir Dogs Special Edition, 10 years. So, we would come to find that these characters are to have these color-coded names, and it's kind of funny when they get to Mr. Pink. He's like, why am I Mr. Pink? Why can't I be any other color? These guys eventually all, go on to go to this, it's either this jewelry heist or this bank heist. I'm not exactly sure which. But eventually they all scatter and they all separate, but then when they rejoin one another, they have all these their own separate stories, and they have to explain their all separate stories, and just becomes a really interesting piece. So yeah, let me grab these bad boys. All right. So we're almost done here. We got a small stack here. Let me pause here to get my stack here. Okay. So, Roadhouse. Classic film. At some point, we have Patrick Swayze, who's to kind of be the lay of the law when he finally does get into his specific club or roadhouse. He's Dalton. This movie ended up getting remade with Jake Gyllenhaal in it, because of course it did. How he goes on, how he has so many rules, and how he fires so many people, and just the way this whole thing plays out is just kind of rather fun at times, where they have the whole monster truck that goes through the car dealership, and we just start to see that there's chaos going in the town all because of this one man. And so Patrick Swayze seems to be the only guy that's going to possibly stop these people. And also, Sam Elliott's character, those of you that haven't seen the movie, spoilers, he ends up getting, taken out in the film. Let's just say. R.I.P.D. I had gone on to review this movie, and it did well. Because of course it did. It's really interesting. We have cops that end up getting killed and going to the afterlife, and they end up in limbo because they kind of done some shady things. We come to find that they are to be contracted to go after these deado things that go on to need to be kind of recaptured and brought back to the afterlife. And it's kind of fun how they play around with these characters having these these kind of alternate versions of themselves that only other people can see. And so it's kind of rather fun to see that all play out. RoboCop, classic film, Dead or Alive, You're Coming With Me. How we really see that this is to be very much like a horror film, much more so than an action movie, I feel. When you kind of really go on and really take bits and pieces of it, so much of it feels more like a horror film than a real action movie. So the RoboCop remake, this was to be a decent enough attempt at a remake. I like the twists and turns of this movie, how eventually we think who the good guys are actually the bad guys. So it's it's a quite interesting film. To also see Gary Oldman as this like doctor character, where he tries to help Murphy in this movie, is to be like, okay, like, all right, like this is uh kind of different than the original film. Rocky. This is the only one that I really cared to collect out of the Rocky things. I can go on and eventually see all the other Rockies somewhere, but I wanted to at least collect this one because I liked this one the most compared to all the others. Like, you find this character that is to be this just real underdog, and he's like, man, no one cares about me. So, like, it's just kind of sad and interesting to see that play out. Rollerball. This is to be the remake. There is some stupid decisions that they made in this film, I'll say, but like some of the action in this movie is also really interesting. Some of the cameos of like Paul Heyman's and Shane McMahon's, and some of the characters in this movie are really interesting, so I'll say that. Robert De Niro's Ronin. This Robert De Niro movie is actually pretty smart. Eventually, there's a point where Robert De Niro, I think, gets shot, and he is to tell the guy, it's like, well, hey, like, you need to kind of sew me up, and I'm gonna pass out now. I think that's what happens in that film. From memory. Rookie of the Year, Funky Butt Lovin', and there was also to be the like little help. Yeah. We have the manager of the team that cannot pronounce the main character's name, and so he's like Runamucker, Rousengardner, Hosengardner, or whatever. And eventually, by the end of the movie, like he finally gets the name right, and the pitcher's like, "What did you say? Like, what did you call me?" Because he actually called him by his right name. So he's so used to him not calling him by his right name that he's so baffled by the fact that he did not go on and call him by a different name at that point in the film. Rumble in the Bronx. This is to be a classic one of those. This is to be a classic movie that goes on and deals with like fighting, but using items during the fight. So like random bits of furniture, like arcade consoles or arcade machines and stuff like that. They use kind of like everything in the kitchen sink with this movie, and I really enjoyed it. Like that scene where like Jackie Chan is like being thrown all this glass on him and he's getting cut. Man, that scene was pretty crazy. We get the rundown. Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Sean William Scott. This kind of cemented Sean William Scott to go on and kind of go back and doing a lot more films than just American Pies. And Dwayne goes on like, well, yeah, I only remember seeing him in like American Pies. I don't remember seeing him in other things. And eventually he was in like Bulletproof Monk, which nobody saw. So definitely one of those just kind of interesting action films. Christopher Walken ends up playing the bad guy in the movie because he always plays a really good bad guy. So like that was a lot of fun to just kind of see that film and check it out. Rush Hour. Kind of two characters needing to go on and work together. And Chris Tucker's character doesn't want to go on and be a partner in the very beginning of the film. He's to want to be a very loner, and like the more and more they kind of are forced to work together, it's just kind of a lot of good comedy gold within the film. And eventually, I think they try within the sequels to recreate that fun, and it probably is like, okay, man, like this is an old joke that you kind of keep going back to. But even Rush Hour 2, like, it really seemed that they just made a grander, more interesting film than also just the first one. Like, this one did have some good ideas, and like I think most of this movie was just kind of more filled with action. then in the first one was to kind of fill with more story. Santa Claus, classic film that I think I go on and I try to see every Christmas, every year, because of how just hilarious it still is. It's still one of those just fun Christmas movies that I can always enjoy. Going from a lighthearted movie to now like a horror one, we make our way into Saw. This specific thing here actually has like this liquid or this water or whatever it is kind of going into it that is making this buzzsaw move in it. And I just think that that's so weird. I'm like, I am so concerned that this thing is going to break at some point, and then something is going to leak out of it. I'm very concerned. So hopefully that never happens. Hopefully this is to always be okay, and it never breaks, so I don't go on and have anything leak out of this. So yeah, I had gotten the uncut edition of this one. So I honestly go on and I look back at Saw now, and I honestly kind of laugh at it. I think I'd gone on to review this, and I talked about how like there's certain lines that people deliver that I laugh more than so I take seriously. But Saw is like one of those just kind of like, man, this movie is fairly fascinating. But also like you get the Yes Man movie where like Jim Carrey's character goes like, "Come on, just saw off the foot. Come on, just get to the point we're all here to see." So now we get to Saw 2. Saw 2, of course, goes on and has like this group of people that make their way into this house, and Mark Wahlberg starts to get involved in these Saw films, and they come to find out this group of people all find out that they're all kind of connected with Donnie Wahlberg's character, and they find out that his son is involved in that house. And they're like, well, like if anybody's to die, it's probably gonna end up being this son. Saw 3, kind of after Saw 2, kind of forget what is all going on in all these Saw films, and if anything, there is no back thing here that really helps out. Eventually we do consistently keep incorporating the girl from 1 and 2, and she ended up just consistently getting involved in all these movies. Because eventually she basically comes back as this bad guy. And spoilers for maybe Saw 2. But yeah. Saw 4? Really interesting to see. They have the Jigsaw character, and they basically tell you that he's living on borrowed time, that he's gonna die soon, and then when he does, they just keep trying to figure out a way to just keep bringing Jigsaw back. Like, at some point, I would just go on and just be like, how about just remake Saw, and just already just go on and just remake Saw. Because they tried that whole spiral thing and that didn't work out. So like, let's go back to Saw. So, Saw 5 and Saw the final chapter. Was it really the final chapter? They made like 10 of these things. And in all honesty, I don't think I have yet to have seen Saw 10. So maybe at some point I will go on and finally see that last movie. If there ever is going to be a last Saw, really. This Saw 6. And then, lastly, we have Scanners. Alright, so, I still have more movie physical media to continue on our videos here, so... yeah, so this is not the end. It's just the end of this section here. So, I'll still have movie physical media still left to go. There is still, of course, Like I said before in other videos, I still have this section here still to comb through a lot of this stuff. So there's still more to go. There's also to still be physical media to eventually cover. I'm kind of tempted after even going on and after I cover a lot of my TV show physical media stuff to maybe even possibly go on and also cover my video game physical media stuff because I have those also. Because might as well just kind of keep going with this whole physical media thing because it seems that people just like physical media in general, I come to find. So maybe when I go on and I just do these video game physical media, maybe that'll be fun too. Just have me talk about some video game stuff that I haven't played in a long time or what really stuck out as really important to me. But I think the more important thing is to wrap this bad boy up so I can go on and I can upload this bad boy. So thank you for watching this. Appreciate you taking the time to check out my collection and maybe connect with any of these movies or reflect on any of them and go on and drop down in the comments below however you feel about any of these movies because maybe anything stuck out to you, whichever. But at the end of the day, I'm going to get out of my way of getting out of here so I can go on and upload this. So hopefully I'll go on and like I'm hoping that I'm going to have a really good turnaround so I can be able to get another video out as soon as possible. But kind of for how many of these videos that I kind of did today, I'm not quite sure. So if anything, I'll get the heck out of here because I know this is an hour and 40. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.